In this video, let's take a deep dive into SharePoint's robust security architecture. Your website will contain hierarchy of subsites and content, and you may want to allow streamlined and strict access to users based on their roles within the organization. So SharePoint gives you full control over assigning access to one or more users by allowing you to create groups and permissions. SharePoint internally defines scopes shown in this image, and you can change security settings at each scope to perform permission management operations. So scope sets boundaries for security settings. So in a typical SharePoint website, you may have one or more site collection under that website, and you must specify site collection administrators who are the users who will have full rights on the entire site collection, regardless of what security settings are defined below that level. Once the site collection administrators are defined, the site collection administrator goes to the site collection and then configure security settings and create security groups and assign permissions to other users. So during creation of the SharePoint website, from central administration side, the farm administrator actually assigns at least one site collection administrator, and this is required. Here I am logged into this SharePoint site, and I am a site collection administrator. But if I want to add another person to act as a site collection administrator, I go to site settings, and then here is the link called site collection administrators. And then there are two users here, including me, who are site collection administrators. But if I want to add another person, I just type the name and then select that person and click OK to make him the site collection administrator. So if I click also this link, another link here, site permissions, I see here that there are some groups already created, and then I have some permission levels here. So basically a SharePoint group is just a logical grouping of one or more users. But what is this term called permission level? So to understand that, in this image you can see here is the way it works is SharePoint has built-in entities or objects called permission rights. Okay, so and there are three types: a list permissions, site permissions, a personal permissions. Okay, and under these three categories, it actually defines various permissions. Each permissions is required in order to perform a certain operations on the SharePoint site by the user. And the way it works is that you can select one or more permission rights and then group them together in a permission level. SharePoint also comes with built-in permission levels like contribute and approve, and you can see here both the permission level points to one or more permission rights into one of these three categories. Okay, you can modify some of these existing permission levels, and you can also add your own permission levels. However, you cannot add your own permission rights. Permission rights are fixed. Okay, so back to the site. So when I created this website and created a top level site the first time, SharePoint asked me to create three groups: members, owners, and visitors. And then it also adds other groups by default to that site. But these three groups actually SharePoint asks me to actually name them and what permission level I want to assign at the site creation. Okay, let's see how that works. So let's say here I have this top level site, and I want to add another section here, a subsite called projects. So if I go to site content and I click create new subsite, and I say projects. I give a name projects, and this time I just want to select blank site template. Now here in this particular section it says permissions. So here SharePoint is asking me that whether you want to inherit permission from the parent site. So if I create the project site, it is asking me to whether to inherit the permission from the parent SharePoint training, or whether I want to define, that means I want to override my own permissions at this level. Okay, So let's say if I select this use unique permissions and click this default option and click create, what will happen is that SharePoint will, before creating a site, SharePoint will actually show me an interim page where I can specify a new group settings. So if I click create, all right, so this is the interim page where I have three groups: projects visitor, projects members, and project owners. Okay, so visitor has read access, the member has contribute access, and the owner has full control. Okay, and this second box is actually who is the owner of this particular newly created group, who will be the owner. Okay, so we will get back to this group ownership later in this video, but for now let's just create this group and click OK. So my site is actually created. Since it's a blank site template, nothing is, no other content or list or library I see here. But if I go to site setting and then site permissions for the newly created web, I see three groups of my just I created. Oops. So now, and then I see this ribbon control option here, right? Here it says delete unique permissions. What that means is if I want to revert back to, say, I want to inherit the permission settings from the parent, I would go with this option. Okay. Now, if I go back to SharePoint training and then select, go to site permissions page, I see different options here. And here is the button called permission levels, which shows me all the permissions level currently defined within my SharePoint site. Now you can see that here are the defined, these are the default permission levels, and some of them I cannot modify, but the other I can. Even I can delete this permission levels using this. I can add my own permission level with this button. When I do that, I'm going to the permission, add a permission level page. I put some name saying contribute, add only, anything, and then start selecting permissions which I think I should be having in this permission level. And once I done with this selection of permission rights, I just click create to create a new permission level. The second approach, which is the easiest and recommended, is you pick one of these permissions, okay, and then you can copy those rights into creating a new permission level. So for example, let's say here is a contribute permission. It says users can view, add, update, and delete list items and documents. But what if I want to create a new permission level which does not allow deleting any list items or documents? You can add or update, but you cannot delete. So to do that, I go to contribute, right? And then there is a button called copy permission level. Once I click that, it will actually open up copy permission level page where I can specify contribute, add only, and then I remove the delete items permission right. All the rights were copied from contribute permission level, and then I can also make other changes if I want to, and then click create, and you can see I have a new permission level here, contribute, add only. I can also copy this and then put them into a description, but no deleting list items and documents, and click OK, and I have the description here. Okay, so once I have the permission level, all these things are settled down, I can go back to permissions and then change either one of these groups to point to a new permission level or add a new group from here also. So if I want to create a new group, I can say contribute, add only users. Okay, and then I'll just let it this settings by default, and then select this contribute, add only permission level. Okay, and then click create, and you can see that the the new group is created, and I can see the name here, and by default it adds my account because I just created that group. Let me just remove that because I am a site collection administrator, so it doesn't matter. But then I can add users to it, and I say tab stealer, okay, and say share. So I just added Deb into this particular group here. So let's say if I log in as Deb stealer account, I hope, okay, it's working. So now you can see it's taking a little bit of a time. Okay, so it's added, Deb stealer is added into this group. So if I log in as Deb stealer here, so remember what we did was we gave site training level access to Deb that she can only add and update, but she cannot delete any record. So this is the document, and I can actually create a new Word document as a Deb stealer user. Okay, if I click this, if I click edit, this is a document. If I go here, you can see there is nowhere it says delete right now. There is no option. So delete option is gone. I can rename this document anything, put a title, annual report, sample, or anything. I can save it, but I cannot delete the document. Okay. So now let's look at newly created section projects. And you can see that if I go to site settings and site permissions, I don't see the group settings coming from parent. So what I'm doing right now is from the project site, from the project subsites and any other child sites under project subsite will actually follow this setting. So if I go to site content, and if I create a new site called project 1, and I just create a team site, if I use the same permission at the parent site, I can also change here that say, I want to again override the security settings from projects subsite. But if I leave this and I say go with this option, okay, so I have the new site, and if I go to site settings, site permissions, you can see all the three groups are coming from project subsite, and here it says this website inherits permission from its parent. Okay, so once I get this, I can also choose to stop inheriting permissions. Once I do that, what will SharePoint do is it's gonna break the permission inheritance and add these three groups as overridden groups at this particular project 1 site. So if I click OK, it actually gives me options saying you want to use existing groups or you want to create a new groups. This is actually a little bit change from SharePoint 2010. In SharePoint 2010, you do not get this option. In SharePoint 2010, basically it just creates, it just overrides the security settings, permission inheritance, and then adds this parent groups into the subsite. Okay, so let's say if I want to create a new group, it actually gives me this option, right? It says I want to actually create also another group for members. Then I get the name suggestion. I can change these options, and also it says, oh, I don't want to actually create owners group. I will actually have my owner group from the parent side. So this is a very, very flexible approach. Once I click that, see what happens to the security site settings. Site permissions. Okay, so you see that I have a project visitors, owners, members, and then I also have a newly created visitors and members. So this is very flexible approach. And if I don't want project members to actually access to the sub site, uh, which is not ideal, but I'm just saying you can also remove those settings from here. And this delete unique permissions, let's see what happens when I click that. So if I do that, oops, you are back to inheriting permissions. Okay, now the effect of this, it does not delete the groups that you just created. Okay, so let me show you why. When you inherit or break role inheritance and you create new groups, and you again after some time you start inheriting permissions, the groups are already created, so they are there. So right now I'm at the project site, and if I go to site settings and site permissions, I have these 3 groups. But if I go to, this is a subsite, remember, okay? So at the site collection level, if I go to site settings and site permissions, I have this default groups. But if I go to I think I go to people and groups, and I go to here, all the groups, you can see here I have a project visitors and members groups created. Okay, so the way it works is, let me show you the diagram and I can explain better. Okay, so in this image you see that these are the site collection top level sites, right? And then oops, you have a subsite. When you break the inheritance and create new groups, what it does is that the groups are created at the top level site, right? And then SharePoint adds those groups at the subsite level here, according to the permission you define. So that all the groups are created at this level and then made available at the subsite level. Okay, so all the other levels won't have those groups. This is how it works. Besides breaking the inheritance at the subsite level, you can also break inheritance at the list or library level, or you can also do that at the list item or document level and folder as well. Well, folder is also a special type of list item. Okay, so if I want to show you how that works, so if I go to, let's say, countries, let's go to projects actually. So I'm at the projects, site content, I am going to project 1, and I have a documents library. And right now the library, let's say what happens. Let's say I go to my team site and then IT operations, and I go to documents. So once I go to the documents, here I go to library and then library settings, and then there is a link called permissions for this document library. Same thing, stop inheriting permissions. As soon as I do this, right now this document library from IT operations under team sites, okay, is inheriting permissions from SharePoint training, the site collection. But now that is not happening anymore. So I have this group collection here. Okay, now that interim page that gives you options, that page only appears while you are breaking inheritance at the subsite level. That page does not appear while you are actually breaking the inheritance at the document library level, okay, or list level. So just so you know. And it's the same thing. I mean, once you set this up, all the users will start reflecting those kind of security settings, and ribbon will always shows you the option based on what access you have. For example, if I go here, the delete document option is gone because dev stealer doesn't have access, right? Okay, so what happens if I change that? So let's see, if I go to SharePoint training and then site content, actually I'm logged in as dev. So if I go to SharePoint training, site settings, permissions and permission levels, and I say this contribute add only, right? So if I go to here and say I wanna go to contribute add only users and then remove this person, the contribute access. Now what happens? So here I come and I refresh this site. It says, sorry, this item has not been shared with you. So what happened is that Deb Stealer has no access right now, not even read access. Okay. What happens when we assign Deb a read access? So if I go to groups and I pick SharePoint training visitors and I add here. So SharePoint training visitor has read access. So, but still I can click new document here. You can see, so it looks like Deb has still access through some other groups. Okay, it reflected now. I was like, why this new button is appearing? So you can see that the new and edit buttons are gone, and I cannot even upload document as Deb Stealer. So what I meant is, based on your permission group settings, and then when you add the users to that group, SharePoint automatically calculates the permission rights, and then based on that, the ribbon and other site components reflects that access into the site. Let's see how that works for top navigation bar. So here in this site, if I want to check access for Deb Stealer, I click this checks permissions page, enter the name, and click check now. So Deb has no permission in the project site. So if I log in as Deb Stealer into the site, at the top navigation bar, projects now does not appear at all because Deb has no access. Same thing applies to left navigation menu here, quick launch here, and also for the ribbon. All right, let's look at some of the group settings. So if I go to group settings for visitors group, the first setting is the owner. This setting says who owns the membership access for this particular group, projects visitors. And here it is a group itself. It's the projects owners group. The second option here it says who can view the membership. That's everyone. And you can change it to say only group members can view the membership. And in the second setting, it says edit the membership. Who can edit the membership? So you have by default group owner setting here. This option will be selected by default. What that means is if the owner of projects owners group is me, Chirag Patel account, then only that person can edit the membership of projects visitors group. Okay, so only my account can add people to project visitors group. So if another person, even if he is a member of the projects owners group, that person cannot do anything. So that's why this particular second option is very important. So in that way, all the members in the project owners group can modify or add other people to the visitors group. And then you have membership request setting. Basically it says allow people to join or leave this group. Click OK. Okay, so I'm going to select no this time. Now if I go to project owners group and setting, right now it was before for the owners group it will assign the same group as the owner, which I actually changed it to SharePoint training owners group, which is the group that has the access at the parent level. And this is the best practice in maintaining the group hierarchy by site basis. Now, besides that, let's talk about other settings. So if you want to view what permissions this group has, you can click this option and it says the site and what permission level it has. And then there is another option, it says make default group. So in any site, when you have more than one groups, uh, at least one group will be the default group for that particular site. What that means is, if I click this button share here and I add people here, let's say I'm adding Chris, right? When I click share, what group it should by default add Chris. Okay, so if I click show option here, you can see projects members group. That means at project site, projects members group is the default group. So if I don't specify which group to add the person to, then it will by default add that person to this particular default group. Okay, this section, this selection here allows you to control whether you want to notify that user through email. So if I check send an email invitation, I can type the invitation note, and then if I click share, it will send an email after adding that person to this group. Okay. All right, so that's it for this video. I hope you like this video. Bye bye.